What's going on, friends? Welcome back to my channel. So you're watching this video because you saw the title and you're in the market for a Supra. So maybe you're driving an 86, you're tired of being slow. Maybe you are in a different platform and you're wanting something a little bit more sporty. You are wanting to try out the inline-six turbocharged platform. Either way, you guys tuned into the right video. So I'm gonna break this down. I'm gonna get right to it. I'm gonna break it down into two separate sections. The first section is going to go over just usual maintenance stuff, and assuming you're buying a stock Supra, whether it's used or brand new. And then the second section is if you are going to buy a modified one. So that's the route that I took. So I kind of have some anecdotes that I can put in there. And hopefully this does help you guys in your decisions. So let's go right into it. All right, so first things first, like I mentioned, this is going to go over the usual maintenance items that you need to be on the lookout for. And then assuming you are buying a stock Supra. So with that being said, let's go ahead and begin. So if you're looking for a new Supra, the Mark 5 ones, you're shopping either between a 2020 or a 2021 plus. So the reason being that you're going to be looking for those two different model ranges is that the 2020s, they are a 2-port B58 engine, and the 2021 plus, they are a 6-port engine. The problem with the 6-port engine is that there are multiple users who have been having problems with the oil burning and them getting warnings on their screen stating that they have low oil. So I'll insert some B-roll here from the Supra Mark 5 forums, as well as the Facebook groups where users have been having problems with that. So I'm just mentioning this. I don't know the full technical details on that. You could probably find multiple videos explaining that, why it's occurring here on YouTube. But just be on the lookout for that, since I don't want you guys to hop on the platform. You're excited to buy your new car, and then the motor ends up seizing on you, and then you have to get the engine replaced. So with that being said, with engine being replaced, some of these owners, they've went ahead, engines replaced through warranty, and then some of them ended up just trading into the dealership. I would recommend just doing your homework there and just make sure if the engine has been replaced. If it hasn't, just make sure that the 6-port motors, they are not burning any oil, just so you know in the back of your head. And then whenever you go to sleep at night, that you are good to go in that aspect. Just because I know how it's like, you know, buying a used vehicle or even, you know, a new vehicle, and then things go wrong. It's just a huge pain, and that you don't want to deal with. So also on that aspect, make sure that you know exactly what the maintenance records are. How often has the oil been changed? Has the brake pads been changed? The tires, depending on the mileage of the specific example that you're looking at. Those are some important items to, you know, be aware of. Also, are there any accidents? Yeah, you know, definitely if you can, try to purchase a Carfax, or if you're purchasing it from a dealer, just make sure that they provide the Carfax over to you. If it's from a private party, just go ahead and obtain the VIN from the owner, and then just, you know, purchase the Carfax and make sure that everything's there. So how many previous owners are there? Obviously, with the more owners that the example has, the more chances that the vehicle has of being abused or just really put through its paces. I know that this platform is really robust, but for some of you who are very particular with their choices, you kind of don't want someone who owned the car before you to just really beat up on it. You kind of want to be that person just so you know exactly what's happening to it. So something to be aware of. Also, if it's a new vehicle, make sure that the dealer, they didn't take it to get detailed in their own detailing shop or their machines, just because some of them, whenever they have their own car wash or whatever, those have brushes and then can cause a lot of swirl marks to be, you know, put onto the paint. So I personally don't want that ever happening, just because it is pretty pricey to get the paint corrected or color corrected, just so you can add paint protection film on it. So that does take time and resources. So if you're buying brand new, or even if you're buying used, just make sure that the paint is in good condition. So if it's factory stock, also just make sure that it hasn't been returned to stock. And if it has, then make sure that it's been done correctly. So a well-put Supra, it doesn't make any rattles or weird noises. We'll make sure there's no loose panels or whatever, just so you're not being annoyed by that if you're taking the car for a long drive or whatever you decide to do with it. Last point is, as if you're buying a used example, maybe you can try to wait for the market to cool off a little bit, just because right now, here in 2022, everything is still super expensive. So just see if you can try to find a deal now if you really want it, or just kind of wait for the market to cool down a little bit. That's it for the first section. Hopefully it does help you in your decision. So let's go ahead and get right to the second section. All right, second section, you're buying a modified Supra, so obviously it's going to be used, so there's more items to be on the lookout for. So what mods are on the car? Is it, a downpipe? Is it an exhaust? Is it wheels? Make sure that those have been professionally installed, especially the downpipe and exhaust, or even an aftermarket turbo, just because you don't want anything to go wrong with those, because the more variables that you add into the equation, that's going to make things more complicated. So for the fueling system, if that one has been upgraded, the vehicle has been ran on ethanol for a majority of its life, just make sure that the oil has been changed more often, so every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. Some of the stock Supra users, they kind of go a little bit longer with changing the oil, but in my experience and just from what I've heard, obviously, since you're running the car on ethanol, just make sure you're having the oil changed more often, just so it's properly lubricated, so you're not having any problems with that. And then also, has the suspension been modified? So whether it's lowering springs or coilovers, make sure that it's professionally installed or properly installed if the previous owner has installed it themselves. So that a properly well-put Supra, like I mentioned in the previous section, it's not going to make any weird noises. It's not going to clunk, because mine is lowered on Eibach lowering springs and it does not clunk regardless of how bumpy the road is. So be aware of that. Don't try to take any excuse to why it's making this weird noise or whatever with the suspension. Go ahead and just make sure that it's all good to go and it's perfect. If you're looking at a car that has coilovers installed, does it have the module installed? I don't remember the module off the top of my head. So there's not a check engine light for it, just because this car is so advanced now with sensors and everything. Any modifications related to the geometry of the car, it's going to throw a check engine light, sadly. So make sure that's good to go, and make sure that if you can, test drive it and see if it is up to your specific taste, because some of you guys who are watching this video, you might be a little bit older. You want to have a sports car, but you don't want it to ride like crap. You're not 20 years old anymore, and your dexterity is kind of out the window. So if it's been modified, it's probably been raced, whether that's on the street, whether that's on the track, because for me, I've done both. So also, are there any major items that have been replaced related to the racing or whatever the previous owner has done to it? In my personal experience, I exploded my axle on the racetrack. So if you guys haven't watched my YouTube video where I took the car on the track for the first time, there's only 2 clips on there, because on that third pass, I blew up the axle. So I had to replace that. Car runs perfectly, no weird noises or anything, but just be sure that you're aware of that and see if, they replace those major items that were broken with OEM parts. Moving on to the interior, make sure that it's in good condition. All the bolsters are not super worn out, and that they have been properly taken care of. So what I mean by that is they've been cleaned, they've been conditioned, just so there's no cracking. And then also for the floor and the mats, make sure that they're not overly abused. If they have all-weather mats, and that's better, because then that means that the fabric underneath the OEM mats, they're protected. And then also, again, I can't stress this enough, is a paint condition. So I suggest watching my other video that I'll link up here. So highly recommend that. But you're buying another used vehicle, make sure that it doesn't have any swirls because, like I said in the first section, it's kind of expensive to get that fixed. Before I close out this video, how well does a car drive? If you definitely can drive it, I recommend it. See if you can drive it. I mean, you don't have to beat on it or do any pulls, but just see what the driving dynamics of the car is. Is it rattling? Does it drive straight? Are there any weird noises that it shouldn't have? How well did the previous owner take care of it? Just be aware of that. Make sure you do your homework from the very beginning, just so you're not 2-3 months down the road and then things go wrong and then you're regretting every single bit of it. If it's well put together, if all those items check out, if you are able to sleep on it and then you wake up the next day and you're like, I think this is a good choice for me, then go for it. Pull the trigger. It's going to be one of the best decisions you've made whenever it comes to purchasing a vehicle, because I've put over 40,000 miles on my car and it's been so fantastic. I mean, you can look at my channel, look at all the Supra videos that I've made. It puts a big smile on my face seeing it, and I love sharing it with everybody, whether they're a car person or not. So there you go. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you guys like this information, let me know if I missed anything. Definitely comment down below. If you like this type of content, please subscribe. Leave a comment. Let me know how I can improve, since I'm always, looking to improve this type of videos. But hopefully you guys watch my other ones that are recommended in this video. But I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.